These are the flies that have just won the Australian Fly Tying Championship. They were tied by a young fellow called David Wilson. David lives in Sydney these days, but he grew up in Coomera, and that's where he developed his love of fly fishing and fly tying. They're absolutely magnificent creations, and David, as an amateur, he beat all the pros in Australia to produce these.
That was the late Dr. Brian Pratt. Brian was a Canberra-based ecologist and well-known fly fisherman. Hi, I'm Dave Wilson. Have to say that was a while ago and it was very nice to be called young. But with age comes experience, and I'd like to share a few fly tying truths with you. Now, most importantly, if you're a learner fly tyer, I've taught hundreds of people how to tie flies over the years. I always use a skills-based approach rather than a patterns-based approach. Now, why is a skills-based approach superior to a patterns-based approach? Well, let's talk about some fly tying truths. Truth number one is that hundreds of learner fly tyers share the same problems. They grapple with the same set of common foundation skills needed to tie most patterns. Secondly, they frustrate themselves and waste time, sometimes years, trying to pick up these skills by haphazardly watching others tie random patterns. Now, apart from randomly trying to pick up skills, learners are confronted with two further inconvenient truths about fly tying. The first is, and nobody could argue against this, there is an absolute galaxy of patterns out there. If we said how many patterns and recipes are there, there's thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. So let's call it a galaxy. Secondly, the learner says, well, where do I start? Do I choose any one of those thousands of patterns? And of course, the second truth as well is there's a tsunami of materials. Which materials and tools am I going to use, the learner says. So here's the problem, here's the picture. We have the what's, the how's, and the result with flies. In the what's, we have an almost infinite number of patterns and recipes. We have an almost infinite tsunami of materials, and to be conservative, let's just say there's 5 tools. But the missing part is the how's. How do we convert the what's into flies? And to exacerbate the how problem, typically the learning, as we said earlier, is random, haphazard, unstructured and disorganised, usually taking months to years. Now, in 1998, we had a ray of sunshine. The Fly Tyers Benchside Reference appeared by Ted Leeson and Jim Schollmeyer. And the thing that made this particular publication extra special was the fact that there were no patterns. It just consisted of 406 methods across 14 categories. And there's a picture of the categories. You can see 14 chapters in the book, 14 categories, and we've got 406 methods all told. 406 methods, no patterns. But what about the core foundation skills learners grapple with to apply the methods to patterns? Most of you would be well aware of these. Let's run across them and just have a quick look. Applying base wraps and prevent head crowding. Minimise winding radius and manage the thread twist and tension. Trimming materials to produce ramps or steps. Mount material with thread torque, pinch, angle and binding wraps. Apply well-spaced ribbing and palmering. Apply a half hitch by hand or tool. Apply a whip finish by hand or tool. Apply direct and touch dubbing. Apply loop dubbing. Mount a conventional hackle, I have to say, that is robust and won't fall apart on the first fish. Number 11, mount a parachute hackle, one of the most popular hackles these days with emergers. Mount a single post synthetic hair wing. Mount a split natural hair wing. Apply gathering wraps to control shape and flare. Mount soft hair by spinning, packing, stacking and trimming. Mount long materials by looping and sliding. Mount side feathers by pinching and pulling. Mount dumbbell and bead chain eyes, core to salt water. And mount stick-on eyes, core to salt water as well. And of course, applying our proportions consistently. Well, you probably have a question now, and the question is, how do the methods relate to the core skills? Is there any relationship at all between the 406 methods and the 20 core skills? If you do a mapping between the two of them, you can see they're heavily related. You can't perform a method without a core skill, and in many respects, methods require multiple core skills repeated over and over and over, making them core. A way of looking at this is that the patterns are the plans, the methods are the bricks, and the skills are the mortar. But we still have a learning problem because the hows, in other words, the skills and the methods, are still random. We've got to get them into an order to assist learning and make learning easier rather than playing around with random patterns and materials. So we need to get our skills into a logical learning order. Now to do this, let's have a look at what's under the hood of a typical fly tying course. Here are our core skills, and we do have to choose some patterns, but these patterns are really just learning vehicles or mannequins upon which to hang skills. Over here, we've actually mapped which core skill goes with which pattern, and you're able to see skills are repeated as we move across the patterns because these skills are core. Learn all of these skills and you'll be able to tie practically any pattern you like. In our fly tying course, we use large close-up pictures. You're able to see here a typical pinch wrap followed by an angle wrap to stop the material from rolling around the hook due to torque. And then we apply it to one of the patterns. And you're able to see here number 1 where we're applying the pinch wrap and angle wrap to a tail. Then we introduce a further skill, in this case trimming. And a lot of people don't realise that the angle of the cut is extremely important because you'll either produce a step or a ramp. And we talk further about blades versus scissors as well and the advantages and disadvantages of both. Then we apply the skill again to the pattern, and you're able to see there in step 2 we're trimming using a step or a ramp cut. Not madly important for this particular fly. This is of course a heron copper, New Zealand's most popular nymph, and it's a fantastic fly to learn on because it's crammed with core skills. Skill number 5 you're able to see there, we're teaching half hitches. We only move on to a whip finish on the next pattern. Now the benefits to you as a learner are these. Your learning is going to be speeded up as the course is based on skills rather than random pattern tying. The patterns we've used have been carefully selected as learning vehicles only or mannequins upon which to hang skills. Your learning is relevant and valid as the skills are derived from the real world from hundreds of learner fly tyers over the years and mapped against Leeson's and Schollmeyer's 406 methods to validate that these skills are repetitive and core. And you'll find your learning a lot easier as each skill is introduced in a logical order building on the previous skill. And your learning is reinforced as well as each skill is repeated, in most cases providing sufficient practice. And as we know, practice makes perfect. So what does this course consist of? If you buy it, what are you going to get? You're going to get 47 pages of notes, and the notes are quite comprehensive, 4 modules, over 100 minutes of video, macro images to allow you to see close-up, and slide stacks that you're able to download. So you have the opportunity here to solve the problem of slow, haphazard learning. You'll systematically learn the core skills, and you'll be able to tie any mainstream pattern you like. Not to mention, of course, having the thrill of catching a fish on a fly of your own tying. So go to flytyingskills.com and accelerate your learning. I look forward to taking you through the course.